What would you do if the ones who raised you turned against you, and the one who saved you didn't speak a word, but stood between you and danger? Like this video if you believe loyalty doesn't need language. Share it with someone who's ever had to choose between their past and their future. Comment if a dog has ever protected you in a way no human could. Subscribe for more true stories where courage wears fur and friendship is stronger than blood. 12 years. That's how long it had been since Ava had last seen their eyes, those deep, dark, intelligent eyes that once watched over her every step. Now, at 18, Ava stood on the edge of the dense Congolese rainforest, her boots sinking into the damp soil, her breath trembling in the humid air. Beside her, Rex, a massive, scarred German shepherd with a gaze like burning amber paste alertly, his ears twitching at every sound. He had been her protector for years, trained to detect danger, to shield and serve. But none of his training had prepared him for this. The expedition had followed tracking signals, whispers of sightings, and long-forgotten memories. And now, through the veil of mist, the vines parted, and there they were. Doma and Kivu, two massive silverback gorillas, emerged silently from the shadows, their presence thunderous despite the quiet. Ava's breath caught. They hadn't changed as much as she feared, and yet everything had changed. Kivu tilted his head. Doma took a slow step forward. Recognition flickered, then confusion, and then something darker. A low, guttural rumble emerged from Doma's chest, his eyes once soft now narrowed. Beside her, Rex growled, low and protective. This wasn't the joyful reunion Ava had dreamed of. This was the beginning of something else, a test of loyalty, a fight between two worlds, a choice Ava never thought she'd have to make. Ava wasn't born in the jungle, but it's where her soul belonged. Her mother, Dr. Lena Foster, was a primatologist who had devoted her life to rehabilitating orphan gorillas, rescued from poaching operations. When Ava was just 2 years old, her father passed away unexpectedly, left with no family in the city and no reason to stay. Lena brought her daughter to the heart of the Congo, where her research compound sat on the edge of a sanctuary for rescued great apes. It wasn't supposed to be forever, but it became everything. From the moment Ava could walk, she wandered barefoot through ferns and moss, clutching the thick black fingers of Doma, the eldest gorilla, and the unofficial patriarch of the troop. Kivu, slightly younger, was her constant companion. He shared his food with her. He pushed her on makeshift swings. He even helped her climb trees. The other researchers were cautious, concerned that letting a child grow so close to gorillas might be dangerous. But Lena believed otherwise. She watched Doma gently catch Ava when she tripped, saw Kivu sit beside her when she cried, and knew her daughter was safer in their arms than anywhere else on Earth. They weren't pets, they weren't playmates. They were family, and Ava was theirs. On her 6th birthday, Doma brought her a handful of wild flowers. On her 8th, Kivu protected her from a venomous snake. By the time she was 10, Ava spoke more in grunts and gestures than in English. She could mimic their sounds, read their expressions. She was, in every way, one of them. But Lena knew it couldn't last forever. Children grow, and gorillas remain wild. So on Ava's 11th birthday, the decision was made. Doma and Kivu were healthy, strong, ready. They would be released together into a protected reserve deep in the jungle. The night before their departure, Ava curled up between them in the enclosure, tears soaking into Doma's fur. "I'll find you again," she whispered. "I promise." And the next morning, they were gone. 12 years passed like echoes in the trees. Ava Foster grew, but never really left the jungle behind. At university, she studied zoology and conservation biology. Her peers partied and posted selfies. Ava studied gorilla migration paths and the ethics of animal rewilding. But every year on her birthday, she took out an old, dirt-smudged photo. Ava, age 10, sandwiched between two majestic silverbacks, Doma and Kivu, smiling through tears. They'd been gone for more than a decade, released into the wild with radio collars that eventually went silent. Her mother tried to dissuade her. "They may not even be alive, Ava. And if they are, they might not remember you." But Ava didn't care. A promise was a promise, and hers had been whispered into a gorilla's ear under a moonlit canopy. So at 22, she took a year off, trained in tracking and jungle survival, and got clearance from the Congolese Wildlife Authority to organize a search expedition into the protected reserve. But this time, she wouldn't go alone, because 2 years earlier, she'd met someone who reminded her of the quiet strength of Doma and the unshakable loyalty of Kivu. His name was Ghost, a black and gray German shepherd with a scar across his side and amber eyes that missed nothing. He'd been a retired police canine, adopted after a career-ending injury, quiet, fierce, and drawn to Ava like a shadow to firelight. Where she went, Ghost followed, and when she stepped off the helicopter and into the steaming jungle air, he was right at her side, head high, ears alert, tail low. Ava looked out at the sea of green. "I'm coming," she whispered. "Wait for me." The jungle welcomed her like a memory, dense, humid, humming with life. But it wasn't the same. 12 years ago, she had held her father's hand and walked these trails barefoot, cradled in the safety of routine. Now, she moved with measured confidence, machete in hand, a GPS clip to her pack, and Ghost always 5 steps ahead, nose twitching, ears swiveling. Her guide, a soft-spoken tracker named Loki, led the way with ease, reading signs no textbook could teach. "To quiet today," Iloki murmured on the third morning, crouched beside broken branches and a single dark hair caught in the bark. "Something's watching." Ava tensed. Ghost froze. A moment later, a deep, distant grunt echoed through the canopy, low, resonant, familiar. It wasn't danger. It was recognition. Doma. Her breath caught. That sound had lived in her dreams for 12 years. She reached into her jacket and pulled out the faded necklace, a gorilla tooth wrapped in twine. Her 10th birthday gift from Doma himself, found in the dirt beside his sleeping form. "Let's keep going," she whispered. They trekked for hours. The jungle closed in around them, thicker and more unforgiving. Vines clung to her boots. Sweat soaked her collar. And then, just before dusk, they found it. A clearing, nestled between towering fig trees, marked by matted grass and large knuckle prints. Ghost growled low, not a threat, but alert. Ava stepped forward. The air felt charged. She knelt, brushed away leaves, and there it was, a handprint. Massive, familiar. Her heart pounded. "Doma," she breathed. From somewhere in the trees, a branch cracked, then silence, and then a deep, rolling growl, not canine, but guttural, primal, ancient. Ghost moved in front of her, hackles raised. She stood still, heart racing. They had crossed into sacred ground. The rustle came again, closer this time. Ava raised her hand instinctively, signaling Ghost to stay. But the German shepherd took one step forward, placing himself squarely between her and the trees, chest puffed, muscles tense. Then a shadow emerged. Massive, towering, Doma. His fur was streaked with age, silver now along his spine. But the eyes, those soft, dark eyes, were unmistakable. For a beat, neither moved. Then Doma stepped forward, nostrils flaring, chest heaving with the weight of 1,000 memories. Ava took a trembling step. "It's me," she whispered. "It's Ava." Doma blinked, then grunted a soft, questioning sound, almost like a sigh. But Ghost growled low, unsure. His instinct screamed threat. His ears flattened, and that was all it took. Doma stiffened, chest rising. The gorilla rose to full height and pounded his chest once, a warning, a protector's challenge. The little girl he once guarded now had another guardian, a rival. Ava's voice caught in her throat. No, it's okay, he's not here to hurt." But it was too late. Ghost barked sharply, lunging forward just as Doma did the same. The jungle exploded into motion. Fur, teeth, roars, snarls. Ava screamed, diving sideways as the two collided, a whirlwind of muscle and fury. Doma swung with crushing strength. Ghost ducked and snapped at his arm, agile and focused. For every thunderous blow from the gorilla, the shepherd answered with unrelenting defense. But neither was truly trying to kill. They were testing, establishing, defending. Ava scrambled between them, waving her arms. "Stop. Please, he's my friend. You both are." Her voice cracked the air like thunder. Both combatants froze. Ghost growled, but didn't advance. Doma lowered his arms slowly, eyes locked onto Ava, confused, protective, hurt. The girl collapsed to her knees between them. "You're both family," she whispered. tears sliding down her cheeks. Please don't make me choose. Silence. Then, slowly, Doma reached out, not to fight but to touch, with one massive hand. He gently rested his fingers on Ava's shoulder. Ghost sniffed, then stepped closer, sitting beside her, for the first time. Man's best friend and nature's giant guardian met not as enemies, but as two halves of the same vow to protect her, no matter what. That night, the jungle held its breath. The rain had passed, leaving behind a mist that shimmered under the moonlight. Crickets hummed their lullaby. The trees, ancient and watching, stood still. Ava sat between them, Ghost on her left, Doma on her right. Neither looked at each other, but neither had left. Ava leaned back against Doma's massive side. His chest rose and fell like a drumbeat, steady, calming. Ghost's head rested on her lap, his tail occasionally thumping the earth as she absent-mindedly scratched behind his ears. She looked up through the canopy. Do you remember the stars, Doma? She whispered. We used to count them from the top of the treehouse. I said every star was a promise. Doma grunted softly. He remembered. Ava turned to Ghost. And you've kept every promise since the day we met. The two guardians didn't respond. They didn't need to, because in the stillness of the jungle, surrounded by creatures who had once been enemies, but were now something more, Ava realized the truth. She wasn't torn between two worlds. She was the bridge between them, as she drifted into sleep, head resting on Doma's shoulder, hand nestled in Ghost's fur. The mist around them thickened, wrapping them in a dream only the heart could understand. The wild had accepted the tame, and love, true, loyal, wordless love, had built a shelter stronger than any walls. At dawn, the jungle screamed. Ava jolted awake as Ghost leapt to his feet, teeth bared. Growling low and dangerous, Doma stood, chest heaving, his eyes fixed on the trees behind them. The birds had vanished, the crickets were silent, and then they came. A pack of feral dogs, wild and gaunt, their eyes burning with hunger, charged from the undergrowth. 5, 6, no, 7 of them, driven mad by starvation and the scent of prey. They weren't like Ghost, trained, loyal, steady. These were chaos wrapped in muscle and teeth. Ava froze, but Ghost didn't. With a snarl that shook the air, he sprang forward, intercepting the first attacker mid-leap. They crashed to the ground, a blur of fur and fury. Doma stepped in front of Ava, shielding her with his enormous frame. Another dog lunged. Doma swatted it aside like a toy, roaring so loud the trees trembled. Ava screamed, no. Ghost, he was outnumbered. 3 dogs circled him, snapping from all sides. He was holding his ground, but barely. And then Doma moved. The gorilla didn't hesitate. With terrifying speed, he charged into the fray, grabbing one of the dogs by its scruff and hurling it into the bushes. Another lunged at him. He met it with a thunderous fist. Ghost, panting, blood at his side, looked up as Doma covered his flank, and something shifted. In that moment, dog and gorilla, beast and beast understood each other, not as rivals, but as protectors of the same fragile thing, Ava. Together, they drove the remaining dogs back. The jungle fell silent again. Only the ragged breaths of the two protectors filled the clearing. Ava ran to Ghost, tears streaking her face. You saved me. She turned to Doma, voice trembling. You saved him. Ghost limped to Doma, looked up, and licked the side of the gorilla's arm. Doma blinked, then lowered his head. A peace offering, not between species, between hearts. The clearing shimmered with the stillness that follows chaos. Ava sat nestled between them, her left hand resting on Ghost's back, her right on Doma's massive arm. Both were breathing heavily, but neither took their eyes off her, the little girl who had once toddled through underbrush clinging to fur, and Fingers was now the anchor between two powerful creatures who, moments ago, had nearly torn each other apart. Ghost leaned into her, pressing his head beneath her chin. His ear was nicked, his ribs were bruised, but his tail thumped gently against the ground. Doma, sitting cross-legged now, gently extended a closed fist toward Ghost. Ava watched, holding her breath. Ghost stared at the massive hand, sniffed cautiously, then, slowly, nudged it with his nose. Ava giggled softly, wiping her eyes. See, you both love me. That means you have to love each other, at least a little. The sun filtered down in soft beams through the trees, casting light on an image no one could have imagined: a battle-scarred German shepherd, a silver-backed gorilla, and a 10-year-old girl leaning against them, both like they were an old family portrait come to life. Ghost shifted and rested his head on Doma's thigh, and Doma, still and solemn, placed his other hand gently on Ghost's shoulder. They didn't need words, not when trust had been carved into their skin, their breath, their bones, not when love had been tested in battle and found unbreakable. And for the first time since Ava had returned to the jungle, she no longer felt caught between two worlds. She was exactly where she belonged, with her past and her present, with strength and loyalty, with family. They stayed for 2 more days, long enough for Ghost's wounds to scab over and Doma's pride to settle. Ava spent every moment in the clearing, laughing, feeding, brushing Doma's fur, and sharing whispered secrets with Ghost. But as the 3rd morning dawned, the satellite phone buzzed. Her father's voice crackled over the line. A storm was coming. The crew had to leave. Ava didn't argue. She knew this moment was never meant to last forever, so she made it count. She climbed onto a rock and held up her old pendant, now polished and worn with the gorilla silhouette glinting in the sun. "Doma," she whispered, "I'll always be your girl." The massive gorilla stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, lifting her into the air as he used to. His low rumble vibrated in his chest, a sound of sadness and blessing. Ghost stood at her feet, ears lowered, sensing the tension. Doma looked at him one last time, not with rivalry this time, but recognition, then turned and disappeared into the trees. Ava and Ghost made the long trek back to the extraction point in silence, her fingers buried in his fur. But she didn't cry this time, because she wasn't leaving anyone behind. She was carrying them with her. The world moved on. Ava returned to the UK, resumed her studies, and tried to live a normal life, but she wasn't the same girl who had boarded that plane. She was braver now, calmer, a girl who had seen love in a gorilla's eyes and trust in a dog's teeth. She thought her journey was complete, but 6 months later, she got the call. A conservation outpost in the same jungle had been attacked by poachers. One of the rangers was missing. Locals claimed a gorilla, massive, scarred, and furious, had been spotted near the wreckage. Ava didn't hesitate. She flew back. Ghost came too. When they reached the site, the forest was burning. The scent of smoke and gunpowder clung to the air. Ghost's ears pricked forward. Ava followed his lead through broken branches and scattered crates until she heard it. A roar. Doma. He was wounded, surrounded by poachers. His chest heaved with rage, his fists clenched. Ava stepped forward, shouting his name. The men laughed, guns raised. Then Ghost leapt. The next minute's blurred gunfire, snarling, bodies scattering like leaves in a storm. Ghost didn't stop. He tore through the threat like a shadow with teeth. And Doma, despite the blood in his eyes, recognized Ava's voice. He didn't attack. He shielded her. Together, man, beast, and bond, they drove the poachers back into the dark. And when the chaos cleared, Ava stood in the center of the clearing, one hand on a bloodied German shepherd, the other on the chest of a trembling gorilla, alive, together. Back in England, Ava didn't speak about the jungle for a long time. Some stories were too sacred to share, but the mark it left on her was undeniable. She started a foundation not just for gorilla conservation, but for all misunderstood animals. Her first initiative paired rescued dogs with children recovering from trauma. Ghost became the poster pup. His scarred ear, his solemn eyes, people saw strength in him. Survivors saw hope. And Ava, she spoke at schools, stood before governments, and told one story again and again. Love doesn't care what species you are. It just shows up when you need it most. Her home was quiet but never lonely. Ghost lay by the fireplace. On her shelf sat a photo, a 10-year-old girl, sitting between a gorilla and a German shepherd, one arm around each. In her eyes, peace, the kind of peace you can only find after the fire. And when people asked her, which one saved you, she always smiled and said, both. One protected my heart, the other taught me how to use it.